TLO, what's pop? We are on Twitch. We are not live, but you can leave a like, comment, subscribe, turn on your post notification bells. Let's continue to grow the family from Chicago to the UK. Right behind me, man. If we do go live and you miss it, man, this is the Twitch. Twitch.com. Username the_LIT_1. Videos will show up right here where the cursors are. I haven't been live in a minute because I'm trying to sort some issues, but they'll show up here. You can fast forward, rewind, do your thing, man. Don't forget, we also got merch. You feel me? And we also got Patreon, where we post Monday through Friday. Patreon is where we react to stuff that we cannot react to on YouTube, such as TV shows, sitcoms, sometimes movies, rarely, never lately, but you know what I'm saying? We got loads of stuff on here. Line of Duty, Bodyguard just finished. We're watching Shameless. This is season 1. Luther, you know what I'm saying? We about to start Gangs of London. You know what I'm saying? It's lit. And being on Patreon, it really helps me to do everything else I need to do while still giving you all the content that I can. So if you can, I salute you. If you can't, still salute you. But this is Bronx of Britain. Interesting. This is Manchester, Moss Side, Manchester. Bronx of Britain is a tough statement. This is 6 years ago this was put up, but I'm pretty sure this is from way further back than that. This is an hour long, so get your popcorn, sit tight.
The streets of Manchester's Moss Side have become a battleground. Drugs-related violence and personal vendettas have brought many untimely deaths. In 3 years, there have been 21 murders in and around Moss Side. Many were teenagers. 21 murders in April 1990. Many were teenagers. In April 1990, Egbert Williams was stabbed to death. In April 1991, Carl Stapleton was hacked to death with a machete.
That's gruesome.
In October the same year, Darren Samuels, on bail for attempted murder, was shot dead.
I mean, R.I.P., but you know, that get back crazy. My bad.
In January this year, 14-year-old Benji Stanley was shot 3 times at close range and killed.
What year is this?
It's hard to go through. It was like a nightmare. I'd just been talking to Darren 10 minutes before, and the next minute I was holding him dying.
All of a sudden, there was a judder of fire. I think there was 2 or 3 shots fired. Well, I wasn't counting. I was terrified. I dug down. They fell down. 2 of them, one of them fell down. 2 of them ran into the kitchen. The one who fell down actually got up and went into the kitchen as well.
The bullet seemed to have skated straight across his face, and it didn't look that bad, but he was bleeding. I mean, he bled all over my arm and all over himself. He was obviously extremely worried about it.
There was just a few people. There was no crowd, and there was blood like a river.
What they shoot with? Probably a Mac. Back then, that was the weapon of choice, right?
The empty streets of Moss Side are testimony to the fear felt in the community. After dark, people stay indoors. The violence has been perpetrated by a small minority, vying for a share of the biggest business in the area. This secretly shot film shows the drug dealers operating openly inside a bookies in the Moss Side shopping precinct. This is the drug supermarket where everything's on sale: heroin, crack, cannabis. But the goods aren't on display. Hidden away in a secret panel in the wall, a dealer gets his supply of drugs.
Whoever filmed this risked their life to get this footage.
Hundreds of thousands of pounds change hands every year as addicts and suppliers buy their drugs from the dealers. 8 hours a day, 6 days a week, dealing...
This is not, I'm not surprised by this, though. This is back then. It's still very similar, but just like not like as wild as this. No, it's still wild like this. In Florida, they did a raid on this one trap house my boy used to frequent. You know what? Never mind. I ain't even gonna get into it.
Dealing goes on under the noses of security guards and shop staff.
No, we use Chicago as an example, man. Chicago, they got bandos with lines around the building down the alley, man. It's like a customer service situation.
It's a business. They have a commodity and they have to sell it. Drugs is such a commodity, and the value of it, there's a lot of money to be gained from it. So it does have a sort of very...
Facts. And you know what's crazy about drugs? That's the only commodity in the world where the price does not fluctuate heavily. It's been the same price for a long time.
High street value, and obviously no respect to anybody and no respect to life. So you have young people who have no other opportunity except into crime or into drugs. You have a situation where gangs form on different parts of the estate in the area. It's not a question of painting a picture of mass. It's only a very small minority of people that's involved in this. But it's a situation of those young people don't see any other future.
A small number have affected...
You know what's crazy? We watch documentaries all the time. This is still the verbiage being used. So all of these documentaries, what I learned is all talk from these people in these positions that want to help and do this and that. They just be talking just to sound good, just to sound like they're doing something for the communities or wanted to make change. But it's 2023, the same stuff going on. More intricate now, you know what I'm saying?
...affected the lives of those living in Moss Side. At this reggae concert, the organisers were expecting gang trouble. Everyone was screened for knives and guns. Here last summer, a young man called Lincoln Stewart was shot in the head.
They gonna play the whole song?
The centre is one of the few places left in Moss Side for youngsters to go to. It serves a population of 12,000, 40% of whom are black. The area has been devastated. Resources have been cut, shops have closed, businesses have moved out.
Yeah, they gonna play the whole song, huh? I'm just talk over it like this. Waffle on. You get me.
For people looking for opportunities, there are none. Among young black males, the unemployment rate is 85%. There's
85% unemployment rate? Duh, the crime rate high, ain't nobody got nothing to do, they bored.
a high crime rate in Manchester, but Moss Side's crime is more serious.
Why would I?
Why is she still in hay? It's tough. Oh, she's a scarecrow. All right. Couldn't even skip it as wild twice.
The people in the area, families, are worried about their children being out on the street, worried about what's going to happen in terms of how the drugs and violence on the street may affect their children. They're worried about going out themselves at night. Women, even travelling short distances, are travelling in taxis to avoid the problem and the fear of street violence. They're worried about security in their own homes.
A drugs raid on a house in Moss Side. Police tactics have changed. In the past, they largely ignored the soft drugs trade, but hard drugs like heroin brought in more money for the dealers and more trouble.
Not gonna lie, it do look Bronxy. It is giving off a New York vibe.
Dealers armed themselves and gang warfare broke out. The lethal combination of drugs and guns in the hands of youngsters gave Moss Side notoriety and forced the police to act. One senior police officer described Moss Side as a nasty, violent place. Community worker John Samuels believes police policies have made it that way. For years, the police try to contain the drugs problem within Moss Side.
The containment
Which is a dumb idea. Can't contain this type of stuff.
policy was the most, should I say, damaging policy that
Tear
ever
the
actually
neighborhood
happened
down.
in this area.
Why do you think that was damaging?
Because, as I said, it influenced young children. It influenced 12-year-olds, 10-year-olds, 14-year-olds. Young children were, looking, observing youths doing their trading, and they took it up as an occupation further down the line.
Some of those that took it up were at school with D. Williams. He was fortunate and got a college place, but for those who ended up on the dole, selling drugs was a lucrative option.
At the beginning, it was a lot of money. I mean, in them days, to make money and stuff like that, for a kid to come out with, I don't know, a ton in his hand of £100, that was something, He used to buy the best trainers and stuff like that. Be able to go out, do things more than the average kid could do.
22-year-old Ian was one of those tempted by the money. Despite a talent for designing clothes, he's only had temporary jobs since he left school. He's on probation for 3 years after he got...
I ain't gonna lie, Ian, you got that shit on, don't you? Hey, look. That boy got, hey.
caught selling heroin. But it wasn't unemployment that led him astray.
I was seeing kids on the street and I got jealous, really, because of the money. And I just wanted to get into it, basically.
But you must have known that it was wrong.
Yeah. Well, to myself, I did say it was wrong, but and it was quick money. As I say, it was just quick money.
How old were you at the time when you first started?
About 13, 14, about, I don't know, 12.
Despite his age, Ian found it easy to join a gang and make contacts in the drug world.
Well, you have to know the people to get the right connections. You have to go out on the streets and the person who's selling, you go to that person and he would tell you.
So basically what they saying for y'all is you got a network. I'm telling y'all, the dope game is very much business orientated. You got a network, you got to see, you got to shop around for prices, you got to, you know what I'm saying, you got a network.
Where to go after that.
So what did you first start dealing in?
And I'm not glorifying it or anything. I'm just, this is very similar to the business world. As a matter of fact, it's as cutthroat too.
That's
in
brown.
H.
That's how I know it of, just brown.
Is that heroin?
Yeah, that's just heroin.
Yeah, H. Of course, inner city, that would work. In a project.
Ian was still at school when he started selling drugs.
After school, the best time to sell the drugs. At night time, no one can see you selling the drugs. You wear dark clothes, whatever. You don't wear bright clothes, how I'm wearing now, but that's how you do it.
So would you stand on a street corner? How did you get a piece of territory, if you like, where you could actually sell the drugs without being hassled or bothered by anybody else selling drugs?
You have to get to know the people before you can actually get a piece of the land to sell on.
At 14, Ian could make £500 a week. Whilst he profited, others took refuge from drug-related crime.
500 pounds a week. Back then, 500 pounds, I know a lot of people that would do a lot for 500 pounds right now a week.
Crime.
In a 5-day period.
I grill up my windows and stuff like that, you know, because it's not so much that you're going to be sitting here one time and the next one you're going to get a bullet in your head on accident, or you're going to get firebombed or whatever. Simple fact that you don't want thieves about, because one thing that nobody thought about at the time was that selling the stuff breeds a new type of thief, and that's what I'd call a smackhead, which is a scummy sort of person. Them people have no values, no meanings, no nothing.
They're gonna do whatever it takes to get their next hit.
The landlord of the Iron Duke pub has banned drug dealing, but the place is a social hub for everyone, and that includes dealers and addicts. Robert and Donna are heroin addicts. Donna has 4 children, including a young baby.
How long she been an addict? She got a young baby. That's.
How much money do you actually spend a day on drugs?
Between 50 and 70 pound a day, sometimes more.
How much roughly?
You be watching the baby, Brenda, whatever your name.
On average, do you spend a week on drugs?
About between 550 and 700.
Is that
Between
700 between you?
Us, yeah.
And how on earth do you raise up to £700 a week?
Good question.
I steal it from shops,
Various
places. Not off other people. Mostly shops.
How much money do you think you have spent over the years on feeding your habit?
About 150,000.
You've actually...
Jeez, bro, you could have a good little nest egg.
Worked it out to be £150,000.
In the last 8 years.
Shops have been forced out of business as the crime rate soars. Last year, there were over 1,000 muggings, and burglaries are now commonplace. A small minority have brought misery to Moss Side. Jim Stevenson has witnessed the upsurge in crime on the estate. He's lived here since his house was built 18 years ago.
What was their plan?
Now retired, he devotes his time to a voluntary organisation which investigates miscarriages of justice. Recently, he became another crime statistic.
We were broken into, and we lost £900 in cash and valuables. We've had 4 other attempts, which came to nothing. Next door to us was firebombed. There's been 3 drug raids on that house.
Dang.
2 which found there was no drugs in the house, and on the 3rd occasion there was a small quantity of drugs. And the remarkable thing about the 3rd...
You know, my man built a house, bought a house to pass down through the generations, and the property value is just terrible over there. You're bringing down the value of that man's house. Not only are you stealing from his current situation, you're stealing from his future, his nest egg. That's...
3rd raid is that the people in that house had put up an iron gate, 9 bars at the windows, and that wasn't to keep burglars out, that was to keep the police out.
Although unemployed, Ian is now trying to set up his own business. He's got traders interested in the children's clothes he makes.
I'll just come show you some designs.
No problem. Have a look.
Excellent.
When he was selling drugs, he made a fortune, which enabled him to move one step up and have others working for him.
I gave them sometimes a 60 for a quarter of an ounce, and I make basically 500 for myself or more.
Would you make that £500 just from one person that was selling the drugs for you, or from all of them together?
No, from one person.
You get one person at 64? A dog? And they bought like 500. Yeah, it was a little cheaper back then, I guess.
And so from all of them, at the end of the week, you would get about £2,000.
Yeah.
Give or take.
Say that, about £2,000 or more.
It's a fact of life here that the black youth of Moss Side see the drugs business as their business, because that's all they've got. It's all they'll ever get. The employment position round here is means that young men, young people are absolutely being degraded and losing dignity through not being able to earn a living.
Do not.
Yeah. He's spitting. He's telling the truth. It sounded a little crazy at first. I was like, where are you going with this?
Drug money equals power in Moss Side, and power equals territory. That territory has been divided between...
This is crazy. This how it still look over there? It's nothing but government housing.
And power equals territory. That territory has been divided between two main gangs. On one side of the estate is the Doddington gang, and on the other is the Gooch. During the years, petty arguments over women and cars escalated to arguments over drugs and territory. Feuds divided former friends and led to violence and even murder. The police have been powerless to stop the shootouts between them, yet they know who the leaders are and where they live.
This was before guns was banned in the UK, wasn't it?
The Doddington
so
gang...
did police carry guns back here? Back then too? In this era?
...have a reputation of being utterly ruthless.
Why Doddington is known as in that light is because their principle is, and there is principles, that they belong to my side, they're from my side, and no one else is going to take them off their turf. Their turf is their castle. This is their kingdom. And because of that, it will be defended with all forces.
And what do they use to defend this place?
Well, we have heard in the past there have been gun battles, there have been machete attacks, and there's been several of those type of wars that has gone on.
Against who?
Against any enemy, as they see it, that would want to come in and take their territory. They had running battles with some of the posse's gang members of the Gooch Close. I'm just going over to Gooch Close now after leaving Doddington.
Just a few streets separate the two warring factions.
This is
Gooch Close.
Y'all, the title is Bronx of Britain, but this is like the way the estate is set up. It looked like Chicago. Like this is how some of Chicago projects used to look. Still to this day, especially on the west side, they look just like this. Like it's one on the west side. It's called it's on what is that the west side? Yeah, that's the west side. It's on Cicero and it's not Polk exactly, but it's down the street from Polk. It's called Phoenix something. It's called Phoenix something, and it looked exactly like this. It's gated though. once you get in, this is the exact setup.
Bush Close is where the young gangs, the young posses grew up together. They similarly had the idea of the Doddington, which meant they'd protect their own turf by any means necessary. They were more organized than any of the other gangs, so to speak, because if one was taken out, they would get together and go in trouble.
Look, he kind of looked like Capri Green too. Like where Capri Green used to be, like where they. If you look at Candyman right now, the most recent one, that's Capri Green where they shooting that at. So some of Capri Green is still up. It kind of looked like this. It's like, what is that? North Ave and no, that's not North Ave. That's Chicago Avenue and I can't even remember. God, I ain't been away.
The person who troubled them.
Their activity has recently taken a
division. It's division and
battering.
No, it's Chicago Avenue. I'm trying to get the exact street because Capri Green was huge, but I'm talking about a different, not the main towers in Capri. I'm talking about the ones that look like this. Yeah, I don't know what I'm talking about.
In 1991, in Operation China, police targeted the Gooch gang. They sat in derelict houses and surveyed the blatant selling of drugs on the streets. 20 people were convicted. Now another gang from Cheetham Hill, 4 miles away, is out to control Moss Side's drug trade. They're better equipped than the feuding gangs in Moss Side.
They were much more organized, much more military fashion, much more central.
What do you mean by military fashion?
Military fashion in the sense that they would have their generals, lieutenants, and field marshals literally operating in that military way.
Hey, what's up there?
That's how it all used to be. I hear this stuff and like Chicago is so unorganized nowadays when it comes to gangsterism.
Cheetham Hill's Tony Johnson was shot dead outside a local pub. Despite 2 murder trials, no one has been convicted. This is a final territory for many of the victims of Manchester's gang violence. A new crime wave has hit Moss Side, known as taxing. Individuals and businesses are robbed by the gangs. Recently, a number of pubs have been taxed, including the Iron Duke, whose landlord was held up twice. On that first occasion, did they actually get any money?
No.
But they did on the second occasion?
On the second one, because he come in with the gun in his hand, so I couldn't do anything at that stage.
How much money did they take?
Well, I'd say about 200 and odd pounds.
Did you actually see the guns on both occasions?
No, I didn't see the gun on the first occasion. I saw the gun on the Friday night, which was the second time when he came back. Because he came with the gun in his left hand.
Do you know who it might have been?
No, I have no idea because it was all covered up. It's only his eyes twice and his mouth I could see.
What about yourself? Does it make you feel as though you want to give up?
If there was a job to go to, I would give up. Yeah. But there's no job to go to now, so you have to try.
Why is that? Do you feel that the situation has just got too dangerous?
Yes, it's bad and it's getting worse every day.
Another victim of the violence in Moss Side is heroin addict Robert.
I got stabbed in the heart and I was dead on arrival at the hospital, and it was only for the heart surgeon being in the hospital after 2 heart operations that day that I'm here now.
What actually happened? Can you describe the incident?
I was walking through the square and someone asked me if I wanted to go. I said no. Someone asked me if I wanted to go. I said no. He threatened to tax me, which is known as like taking the money off me, and stabbed me with a knife. I was in hospital for 13 days. I was in intensive care for 3 days on a life support machine, in a coma.
So what you telling me is you was walking, you got poked in the heart. As an H addict, first and foremost, were you high at the time? How did you survive through that? That's the power of a nitty. It's crazy. But you telling me after all of that, you went back to H? You went back to using after you almost lost your life? You didn't think that there was more to it than this? It didn't flash before your eyes or nothing? Jesus.
The violence, while shocking, is commonplace. The police believe on average there are 2 or 3 shooting incidents every day. Many go unreported. Some are gang-related, some aren't. Even within gangs there is little loyalty.
There's no trust in the drug world. There's no trust.
Literally, all these people that run around talking about gang, that's my homeboy to the death. Like, no, bro, there's no honor amongst thieves. The first moment that he can have to take your spot is gonna do it.
So you wouldn't trust any of the other people in the gang? They didn't necessarily trust you?
I talked to them, but I won't trust them. There could be a friend, or just talking to them while I'm on the street, selling to keep me company or whatever. And that's basically it, but I don't trust him.
That lack of trust betrays the jealousy and the rivalry in the drug world. Ian learnt the only way to survive on the streets was to make his presence felt.
You have to make them know they can't decide on that part of turf where you're selling. So yes, it's like sort them out.
Right. So the only way to make sure that they don't encroach on your turf is to beat them up?
Yeah, and
send that message.
Attack them, really.
How would you attack them? Would you use a knife?
Yeah. As you say, a gun, but I never used one of them before. Never seen one.
So did you beat up people
Sometimes,
to make sure that they remembered never to go back on your turf?
Yeah, sometimes.
He's reliving the moments as he tells this story.
The Pepper Hill pub became the centre of drug and gang activity in the area. Numerous shootouts took place here between rival gangs. Last year, the police closed it down. In March 1990, Egbert Williams was beaten up outside the Pepper Hill. The following night, he went back. His sister, fearing trouble, arrived to see a man about to attack her brother.
And he just took this iron bar out of his...
They twins.
...inside of his jacket and hit me on the head. I then fell to the floor and he and my brother clashed. As he and my brother were fighting, I then got up and I was holding on to him and hitting him and dragging him to get him off my brother. But then there was someone hitting me and kicking me on my back. I looked across, my sister was on the floor and my other friend was on the floor, and this person was really laying into me in my back. So then I could feel myself slipping, and then as I was going to the floor, my brother fell, and his attacker fell on top of him, and I slipped and fell on top of his attacker. And at that point, I see my brother's head just roll back, and he just said, "Help me." Someone dragged me up off his attacker, and then they dragged him up, and my brother didn't get up, and there was just blood everywhere. Then
metal pole, probably.
And I seen his friend drag him away, and they all ran off, jumped in the car, and screeched off away, and we were left there with my brother dead.
I'm just coping somehow by God's will. But it's dragged me down so much, and I can't keep any help. But I'm a believer in God. In God I trust.
What's going on? People will complain eventually to you, like they do to me, and say, my door was kicked off, I've not got anything to do with drugs, but yet my door was kicked off. No one has apologised to me, no one's given me any compensation about it, what can I do about it? It doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen. Now, I don't want it to happen at all. If they say they know who the people are, then target those people. Don't target innocent. Because there are innocent people sometimes that are involved innocently in some of this activity.
Man, and that's the crazy part, man. There's always somebody innocent losing their life. Because they're not even thinking about protecting themselves. They're just trying to be innocent and a civilian.
Mistakes are costly and cause resentment. Gary and Mark Ellison live in Doddington Close, frontline gang territory. They're not involved, but the police have targeted their house and raided it on numerous occasions. Mark is suing the police after he was subjected to a violent assault.
Oh, talking about the police.
He had me on the floor, standing on my neck, kicking me in the chest, in the back, standing on my legs.
Quite a terrifying incident, really, that builds up from almost nothing. It starts in the routine and becomes a nightmare.
I thought I was going to die that night, basically. About 3 of them came in the van after me, when they threw me in the van. I had the handcuffs behind my back. I was on the floor in like a lean type position like that, and they just started standing on my chest, putting fingers in my mouth, over my eyes, over my nose, saying things like, don't let him breathe, don't let him breathe, and just...
How much was the settlement?
It's the attitude towards him, almost of contempt.
John Samuels is a lay preacher. He tried to build bridges between the community and the police. That changed last September. While putting up posters in a bookies to recruit black youngsters into the police force, there was a police raid.
Another officer came in, started to wheel in, punches, blows to my stomach, legs, and a very, very heavy one got all of my neck and started to squeeze. At that point, I just was grasping for breath and I called for help, and I think I blacked out.
The police have a philosophy which states that they are serving the community. However, when one looks at what happens in practice, that is not operating. And a whole series of incidents going back over many years, I think, indicates that very often the police behaviour in the area is much more like that of an occupying force.
Turn it into a police state.
The bitterness between the youths and the police has a long history. It exploded into violence in the riots of 1981. The embattled position of the police remains. Dispatches was refused cooperation in filming police activity in Moss Side. It was thought too sensitive.
Has everybody submitted their expenses, those of you that have been on containment? If you don't put them in today, you probably won't get them. The last day is tomorrow. Can you all make sure you read this about the AJU?
What we were allowed to film was his daily parade briefing.
I just remind you that your annual leave forms are now out.
Police don't even carry them in the UK no more, batons.
No senior officer would give an interview, but junior officers were willing to talk. They explained some of the difficulties they face in Moss Side.
Well, it's mainly the serious crimes that they don't come, they don't attend court. They'll give all the statements and the evidence, but actually attending court, they don't always attend.
Do you think it's just because they feel that they shouldn't do it, or do you think people have actually threatened them?
Mixture, basically, a bit of both. They've probably had threats, not to attend court and give evidence, so they've had second thoughts and not attended just in case these threats, are carried out.
The main problems we have are with prostitution and drug offences and drug-related offences. A lot of it being spurned by...
I'm telling you, during this time period, the UK was no different than America or Canada or any anywhere, like it's the exact same. It's what they did afterwards that made the difference. But like during this time period, it's almost the exact. I feel like I'm literally watching a documentary about New York or any big city in America.
No jobs in the area, and just a general dislike for the police in the area.
You think there is a dislike?
I think so, personally, yeah.
Absolutely.
Usually by the younger element that tend to rebel a little bit. What
do you think the community should do to help you?
There's not an awful lot really, apart from trying to trust us more, I would expect, which is going to mean a lot of work on the police side as well as cooperation by people in the street.
Why do you think you don't have the confidence of the community?
Well, again, I think it's the different backgrounds of a lot of the people on the area. A lot of the people are black people from the West Indies who may have been brought up in a different regime, or where they may look after themselves, whereas we hope that the police will look after the problems they have.
What sort of problems do they have?
Well, again, I think the things with the drugs, the people, certain people are brought up with where drugs are readily available and are used, are commonplace. Whereas in this country, they are against the law to use them and to have in your possession.
Racist stereotypes will only make the police task harder. Brian Scott Ford is a former police firearms instructor.
That's a good shot.
He's monitored the use of firearms in Moss Side. It seems
good grouping.
The illegal weapon supply is inexhaustible.
GoDaddy is a partner.
I don't know if y'all know what grouping is. I know y'all can assume what it is, but like, you know.
Money makes the...
Boy, they hitting us cold-blooded, boy. I forgot to turn my ad block on. If you're watching this, my bad, G.
On the last amnesty, there was tens of thousands of firearms nationwide handed in, but the Home Office still reckon there's twice as many out still on the streets.
Is there any way that the police can actually try and curtail the number of firearms that are circulating?
None whatsoever.
Recently, a youth was gunned down in this shop. One shot hit the telephone. The gunman escaped.
Bro, replace the... This is not funny, but replace the telephone. Like, what?
Well, it's first time that this happened here inside the shop. We'd heard of shootings all around the area, but never inside here. So.
What are your feelings about the area?
I'm terrified sometimes.
Uzi submachine guns like this, capable of firing 150 bullets per minute, have been used in Moss Side. They're available for £400. Hand grenades can be bought for £50 and have been by the Gooch gang. They're just waiting for the right opportunity.
But from who? Who is supplying that?
To use them.
Did they say from who?
6 weeks ago at 3 a.m., at least 30 rounds, including armor-piercing bullets, were fired outside this house. 2 Moss Side youths smashed their way in through the back door.
One of the guys had a wound across the front of his nose, and we told him to sit down and wait for an ambulance to come, and the other guy was he wouldn't sit still, and he ran upstairs. He was looking out of all the windows, obviously worried that he was being followed.
Now I think it's a power thing now. I think it's nowadays all they want to do is outdo each other, and they can't stand to see the next person that's selling making more than them.
Yeah, that's all it ever is, man. Whole time, never mind.
Or the next group making more than them.
Whole time, just like with any other business, there's enough for everybody. And I don't condone any of this, YouTube.
So they'll go out of their way to destroy what they've got, hence the guns, and hence shooting people, and then it becomes a part of their honour to go whip somebody's ass, you know what I mean, stuff like that. It's stupid, but it's life. It's life down this end.
It's also death. The murder of 14-year-old Benji Stanley in January horrified the community. Police and some residents believe they know the killer's identity, but witnesses are too terrified to give evidence, fearing they could be next on the hit list. The police have a witness protection scheme, but it's proved a failure.
I'm a witness in a murder case and a witness in an attempt murder case. And my address should never have been divulged on the radio or in the evening.
That's what I'm saying. See what being a witness gets you? See what I'm saying? Playing with your life at that point. That's why the relationship is fried between the police and the community. And nobody, and the whole communities be having this no-tell situation because people who telling like y'all making mistakes. Y'all playing with their life. Y'all playing.
The news, and it was. And I feel badly let down.
Of course you do, as you should.
That it was. So much so that I refused to go to court on the attempt.
Yeah, it's over.
Police protection, as far as I see it, is picking you up the morning for court, taking you to court, sticking you in a room at the back of the court or under the court, and then taking you home at night, and that's the end of it.
But while people remain silent, Moss Side's crime won't go away. This drug dealer operates from a pub with others. The drug industry benefits while people don't confront the problem.
They don't inform us. We don't got strict instructions not to let anybody film.
This Bookies is in the shopping precinct. Dealing continues despite the patrols by the precinct security guards. Day after day, the public chooses to ignore the drug dealing. No one would dare challenge the dealer going to his secret supply. But weren't you frightened that standing around on street corners selling it, one of your neighbours would see you and pass the information back to your parents?
No.
Not one bit.
But your parents must have seen you.
He kept a straight face, did not elaborate. No.
With money. I mean, what did you do with the money that you actually earned?
Spent
I'll
it.
break down and save it up for myself. Which yeah, you get clothes or whatever off it.
But they must have seen the new supply of clothes that you were getting for yourself.
I won't worry about that. They see the amount of clothes I'm buying and trainers or whatever. You just don't worry about it.
And do people know why you're selling these goods?
You've got a good idea, yeah. But they won't admit it, but they do know.
And they're quite willing to actually buy the goods from you?
Yeah, well, it's a bargain, isn't it? It's like you're getting a £200 leather jacket for like £50. You're not going to see no way.
There are drug operations like this every week in Moss Side, as the police try vainly to clear out the dealers. But as the shootings and dealing continues, it's a terrible warning for other areas of Britain. Too little being done too late.
It's here today, it can be somewhere else tomorrow. It may be some nice...
This is a perfect example. Like, this is why I like watching stuff like from the past, because it just like validates what I be saying. Like, you can stop it for the moment, but it's just going to evolve. And you know, they really thought they were stopping it back then. And what it do? Evolve. You know what I'm saying? Like the drug aspect of it. All it did was evolve.
Leafy green area of the city of Manchester. Let's say for Manchester, for instance, where then I think people may do something about it.
I've spent an eternity waiting on medical appointments. But now that One Medical's 24/7 virtual cares,
People can get flash cars, they can get the latest gear, and they can get things they want. And so that's something they aspire to. They have got to survive, and they will survive one way or the other, whether legally or illegally. And that is the sum total.
That's a fact. Human nature at its finest is to survive. Period. The sum of all creatures left on Earth right now is because of thousands of years of survival and adaptation. So we're going to continue to survive as humans, period, in any aspect of life.
Would be the sum total of their existence for the future.
Moss Side has become the drug centre for the Northwest. There's open selling both in the precinct and in the streets surrounding it. It's a sophisticated setup. The dealers use cell phones to reach their customers. And mountain bikes carry the drugs to and from safe houses. Once only soft drugs like marijuana were dealt openly. Now it's heroin and cocaine. The new generation of dealers has few scruples, but like many speaking tonight, they do fear reprisals. For that reason, we have had to conceal some identities.
I don't feel bad about selling drugs because I didn't ask you to come and buy my drugs. You approached me to buy my drugs. And if you're too young, you get sent away. If you're pregnant, you get cussed and sent away. And that's it. I'll sell to your granny, I don't care who else. I don't ask nobody to come and buy my drugs. You know what it does to you, and that's why I ain't taking it. I'm not daft. I mean, the difference between my dad's generation and my generation is that we don't see it as right that you should work the whole of your life in one place, and at the end of the day, you've still got little or nothing to show for it.
That's a fact, boy. But I ain't, you know what I'm saying? There's other ways to do it. I can't tell nobody not to do whatever they don't do. But I just want to tell you there is other ways that you can make a living. The internet age is crazy.
I mean, my dad works hard, man. You know, I just remember seeing him come home and straight after work dropping asleep. Sometimes couldn't even wait for my mum to bring him his tea. And then the next morning, up at 6 to being at work at 7.
Gruesome.
To do that again. And for years and years and years. I've been seeing him do that for 20 years. And I'm not going to do that.
For young men on the make, cocaine and heroin can bring big money, fast.
If you're into drugs hard, selling drugs hard, you can make $1,000 a day, no problem. Drugs is the economy on my side, man. Serious. I mean, there's so many offshoots. You've got like people who've set themselves up out of drug money. They've made enough money out of drugs and they've gone legal and set themselves up, doing good. Give them a chance to do things, right? Half of them guys out there could be top businessmen. I mean, they've got business minds.
Told y'all earlier.
Selling drugs is a business.
Facts.
You know what I mean?
But, you know what I'm saying? There's a lot of other ways to go.
It's not like...
But if you have sold them in the past and like whatever you're doing now, I'm guarantee you're taking a lot of the same things that you were learned or came across in that area and applying it to whatever you're doing now.
Messing about or doing anything else. Selling drugs is a business.
But it's a dangerous business. One man's profit can easily become another man's pickings. Many dealers now protect themselves with guns.
There's a hell of a lot of trigger-happy people about the place nowadays, whereas guns is concerned. I mean, it's not unusual to just walk on the front line and see a man with a gun. It's not unusual now. The American scene is now hitting here. You know what I mean? And people are trying to run away from this. You know, I've heard so many people say, no, it can't get here, and it's already here. They're not interested in physical violence, you know what I mean? One-on-to-one. They're coming to damage you.
What the dealers fear most is what they call being taxed. But it's not the Inland Revenue who are after their money.
Taxing goes like this. People sell drugs, yeah? And some make more money than others. You know what I mean? And some make a lot of money. Now, you can't put all this money legally away, sort of thing. So now, you know, you'll have a stash house or you'll keep some in your house or whatever. Now, people are watching to see how many punters you serve a day. They sort of like set you up, wait until you come home and you're in your house, burst in your house all masked up, tooled up, sort of like, and just basically put a piece to your head and say, where's your money? And you've got to give it to them. So if you want to be involved in the drugs business on a violent level, then you'll suspect or you'll feel like you need a gun because your next adversary's got a gun, your enemy's got a gun. So therefore, you feel as though you've got to have a gun just to protect yourself.
Some of the shootings in the past 4 years, then, reflect the growth in Moss Side dealers taxing each other. But the firearms they've acquired for protection may also have been used in an even longer-running feud.
Chatham What was
Cheetham.
Cheetham.
Cheetham Hill lies on
Cheetham
the
Hill.
opposite side of
Cheetham
Manchester
Hill.
from Moss Side, but the two have close ties.
I'm talking about Cheetham.
Many now living in Cheetham moved there when the old Moss Side slums were demolished. 10 years later, when redevelopment came northwards, there was a reverse migration from the terraces of Cheetham down to Moss Side. A generation has grown up with friends and enemies, living in camps on both sides of the city.
With the Cheetham Mill and Moss Side businessing, well, that's like, there is some rivalry and gangster war business between them in a sense. There is a feud between them. But it's not like everybody is involved. I mean, people from Cheetham Mill still go to Moss Side and vice versa. To be honest, the whole of the crew of Moss Side that's carrying a grudge against Cheetham Mill to those that are actually fighting. If anything, there's about 6 actual hardcore guys are at war with Cheetham Mill. And they've got a calling crew of about 20 to get involved and so on and so forth. And the Cheetham Mill side, they have more that appear to be involved because they're tighter-knit. But apart from that, all in all, it's to do with about 5 people basically. And that's how it all started.
That's how it always starts. About 2 to 3 people get into it. Then you look up, it's a whole war. Nobody knows what they're warring about. They're just down for the cause.
This is one of the places
Blindly.
where it started.
And then after that, the blind starts leading the blind.
From the mid-80s, Manchester city centre and its clubs became a focal point for the rivalries of Cheetham Hill and Moss Side. The gallery took the brunt of it. Today it's closed. The feud started over women, but quickly became about...
That's what I'm saying, bro. Like, a lot of these gang wars be about women. We still fighting. Like a lot of y'all, I say we, but a lot of y'all in gangs are fighting a battle that started over a female. And at the same time, y'all screaming, I'll never beef about a female. Your whole existence and beef is about a female.
About reputation. While Moss Side's notoriety came from drugs, a Cheetham Hill gang spent the 1980s carving out a name for violence, especially armed robbery.
Them boys up there are sort of like known for security vans, flags, you know, stuff like that. And always have had shooters and stuff. I mean, that's how they made their name and their money and their reputation, so to speak. So, I mean, obviously they're sort of like violent.
It started with a supermarket raid in 1981. No one was charged, but Cheetham Hill privately took the credit. Last month, their violence became public with the conviction of 2 men for armed robbery in Oldham. Stephen Julian and Chinadu Iraguara attacked 2 security guards with a shotgun and a machete. They jointly got 42 years. But while close to the heart of the Cheetham Hill gang, they were not the leaders. Cheetham Hill is tiny compared to Moss Side, only a quarter of a mile square.
Why would you attack a security guard? I feel like attacking like a government aide or a government worker, like a postal office worker or a bus work driver. Or like a security guard, even though a security guard is not government, but like attacking a security guard carries a heavy sentence. 100%. Because of his job title, it carries a heavy...
But that compactness has given its criminals a degree of organization that their rivals don't
Certain
possess.
security.
Them hillbillies, they just organize themselves like an army, really, you know what I mean? They've got the soldiers and the lieutenants and this and that. That's how they sort of like name themselves. Whereas people in Moss Side, they're not really interested in gang warfare because drugs has always been the way of life in Moss Side.
But Cheetham Hill may be starting to extend their interests across the city. They now have links with other gangs, both black and white, in Longsight, Salford and Wythenshawe.
Cheetham Hill does certainly seem a lot more organised.
because they seem to have formed alliances with Longside and Salford, and they seem to move as one. Whereas in Moss Side, it's little groups of people who protect their own patch and don't look after anyone else. In that sense, Cheetah Mill seems more organized, whereas Moss Side aren't. At some point, there'll be a struggle for power, a struggle for turf. Longside, Cheetah Mill, Withenshaw, Salford are pushing for power. And to be seen to be weak is to be at a disadvantage.
Once again, it may be the night spots of Manchester that first feel the gangs flex their muscles. People are reluctant to talk openly, but doormen, customers and club owners all tell the same story.
We've been threatened twice. If you don't let us in, we're going to burn your club down, we're going to blow your legs off, wherever. The Cheetah Mill seem to have a notorious name gangland-wide, with instigating troubling clubs and on doors.
These guys walk in as and when they like. On one occasion, I was at a club and someone kicked the door off, and 17 or 18 people just walked in front of all the bouncers that were there. I turned to a guy and I said, "What the hell's going on?" And he said, well, he just turned to me and he said, "Salford."
I ain't gonna lie, they moving wild. Kicking in doors at the club, like you may be putting everybody on edge. It ain't even the same vibe no more.
In Manchester, it's far, far greater than people realise. There's about 5 or 6 or even 7 nightclubs which have been threatened. They'll take the door, like they'll put their own men on the door, and whatever comes through that door, they get a percentage of, or take the old take.
As I hear it, they try and sort of like control the door and a percentage of the bar. Otherwise we'll do this and that or whatever, blah, blah. Because Cheetah Mill like to live that life, don't they? I mean, they're gangsters and that. I suppose that's how they go on. There's certainly certain clubs in the city centre who have been targeted. I know of one club that was turned over twice within the space of 3 or 4 weeks. The first time for about 14 grand, second time for 3 or 4, by people who the club owners actually knew. And it was rumoured that after the second time the place was turned over, the guys who did the job were seen ordering champagne, drinking champagne, and basically blowing the money that they just ripped off from this club. At another,
that's wild.
Another night spot in Manchester.
Knowingly too, like y'all know they spending y'all money in y'all club back to y'all.
Longside, Cheetah Mill, Withenshaw, Salford are pushing for power, and to be seen to be weak is to be at a disadvantage.
Until now, Moss Side's strength has been the scale of its drugs trade. It hasn't got a monopoly in the northwest, but nowhere else has such a thriving street business. Despite high-profile police operations, the problem remains.
They ain't getting down into this thing. They don't know nothing, really. The police will tell you that they've cleaned up this, they've cleaned up... They ain't cleaned up shit. You know what I mean? This is something...
I said this earlier. It's like they say they cleaned it up, they say, but look at now, it's just more evolved.
It's here, right? And it's just going to escalate. It's not going to go on.
For the police, the drugs trade is a fact of life. Their response is to contain and...
I will say it's a lot less violence, but as far as drugs, they're still there and they're more prominent as ever.
Control the problem rather than displace it elsewhere.
It is very much a containment exercise. I don't suppose at the end of the day we're ever going to stop it completely. However, we continue to do our very, very best in that direction. People do get arrested, drugs are recovered, and we will continue in that vein.
But many Moss Side people press for still tougher action.
The whole point about the drugs problem is that the drugs problem isn't really a Moss Side problem. It's a problem that the rest of the northwest has, but which they locate into the Moss Side area. It does concern me when people say that the police are happy to keep the issue locked into this one area, because I'm sure in my own mind that if drugs were being dealt in the more prosperous areas of Greater Manchester, that there would have been a much greater public demand that the thing was cracked down on.
It's a concern that's also shared by black people in Moss Side.
I've been surprised at the police response. And it's certainly the case where white people see these guys breaking the law, and they say...
That's why crime stays in the hood, really. Once it starts going outside of the hood, Oh no, they're not dealing with that. Keep that over there. Keep that over there. Keep that over there on that side. Don't bring it over here, because if you bring it over here, the sentence is gonna be way crazier. The line of you're not getting out of there.
Say the police aren't doing anything about it. Why should they get away with it when we can't? And it fuels the resentment that there is between black and white communities. The police have sat back and let this happen. They've known the consequences, but I suppose it's a gamble they've been prepared to take.
But how high the stakes are now became apparent in February of this year when the drug squad did act in Operation Popeye.
Operation Popeye?
As the London train pulled in at Manchester's Piccadilly station, 2 Moss Side men were on board. Their luggage contained nearly 1.5 kilos of heroin, worth £250,000. Ian McIntosh and Maurice Macpherson were working for a supplier with a near monopoly of heroin in Moss Side. Their arrest led to a brief famine of the drug, but it also triggered a 3-fold increase in reported shootings. Macpherson in particular was a strongman, feared by Cheetham Hill. With him,
every action has a reaction. Yeah, the streets is hungry. The streets is it's off the streets. But now people are mad. They ain't got nothing to do. They ain't making no money. So let's terrorize something. That's how it really be. That's the bond. That be the mindset.
There were many who wanted either to settle old scores or to fill the drugs vacuum. Cheetham Hill wasted little time in taking their grudges south through the city. At the International 2 Club in Longside, a reggae night came to a violent end when 10 men burst in waving pistols. There was an exchange of fire. 1 man was shot in the back, but managed to escape. That weekend, it seemed that gun law had come to South Manchester. There were car chases on both Saturday and Sunday. Guns were fired on both nights. A second man was shot. On Monday, the police mounted Operation Takeover to investigate the shootings. This is the man who was shot at the International 2 Club. For Delroy Brown, this was the 4th time he'd been attacked. It wasn't to be the last. In May, gangs from Cheetham Hill appeared in Moss Side twice in broad daylight, at the annual carnival and at a Bob Marley concert. Bystanders were left in no doubt they were carrying guns.
And this was a hot day, remember? And all the front line had on long macs or ski jackets. It means like they're carrying. These guys were walking around with their hands inside their coats, and that was really scary. That was really, really scary.
And it's hot during this time, right?
They were armed. That was just a blatant show of strength, man, you know what I mean? They just wanted, well, it was like intimidating people, wanting people to know how strong they were. There was a lot of people rushing around, not knowing what was going on. People screaming. And then I don't know where they came from, but I heard 2 shots. It didn't look as though they found the person they were looking for, but they certainly found his car.
Dang! The BMW was a write-off. Once again, it belonged to Delroy Brown.
Delroy was a menace. They was on Delroy like this. Delroy is not innocent. He know it.
Despite a 3-month investigation, the police have been unable to discover the identity of his attackers. But their raids in Cheetham Hill and Moss Side found more than a dozen different weapons.
These are just some of the weapons that we recovered during the course of our operation. This rather nasty-looking weapon here is a Walther PPK, which was in the possession of a 16-year-old boy, along with suitable ammunition for it. This one is a Smith & Wesson 38 revolver, another dreadful-looking object. And this one, a pump-action shotgun, which is extremely nasty, to say the least. To have that pointed at you would be terrifying, I would have thought. But if that's a sample of what we've recovered this year, which is obviously what it is, it really is quite frightening to think how many weapons might be about.
In fact, Operation Takeover seems to have found only a fraction of the guns on the street.
The reason why there's a lot of guns out there is because there's a lot of money out there now. Young guys got a lot of money, you know, and they just take it to spend on things that they think should go with money. violence and fast cars and guns.
Well, I've asked a guy before how easily it would be to get hold of a gun. And he says, well, how much you willing to spend? And I says, well, what could I have? What prices do they start from? And he said, well, you could pick up a handgun for about 50 quid.
You've just got
Yeah. Not no more in the UK.
to know where to go, where to get it. You can get any gun you like as long as you've got the money to pay for it. Any gun you like. Brand new, wrapped up in the box, in the paper, brand new, in the greaseproof paper, man. Smith & Wessons, Magnums, through to Uzis. You know what I mean? I personally have seen 2 Uzis.
This is the Uzi.
I've seen so many of those, so many Mac 10s, and I've seen a crazy amount of any firearm. Well, I'm an American also, and I'm from Chicago, so I've seen it all.
An Israeli-built 9mm submachine gun with a firepower of 600 rounds a minute. If these are to be had, the outlook is bleak.
I've seen 2 Uzis myself, with the fold-over handles, the stamps, the greasy-looking barrels and all that. I've seen 2 brand-new-looking Uzis on this guy's table. I know what an Uzi looks like from magazines, and I've seen them on TV. And then by, like, the whole shape of the gun, really, you just recognize it like you'd recognize an escort. But there was one thing that was distinctive. The barrels are big. They're not small barrels. They're big barrels that are like, 3 fire at a time sort of thing. Close sequence.
But there's a possibility that there will be more killings. I mean, you cannot guarantee that there won't be more. Differences will occur. Other people will try to muscle in, and then those people will have to defend their patch or whatever. And there's a likelihood that there will be other shootings.
The shootings and violence have continued throughout this year. Some may be down to drugs or gangs, but more seem motiveless, their victims the targets of casual brutality. Hendy Proverbs died on the floor of a pub in a pointless argument over a broken table lamp.
Obviously the body was still there, and there was, not surprisingly, a lot of blood about. And it was a dreadful scene, to say the least. But I was very disturbed to see also a number of customers who'd been in the premises at the relevant time, still there, some of whom were playing pool, and some of whom were simply carrying on drinking. There's very little regard, seemingly,
For life at all. People just continued on with their night.
on some people's part, for life.
It's this indifference.
That's how I am, though. I'm not saying that I have no regard, but I'm pretty numb to death in general. Like, after seeing so much of it, it's like, yeah, all right. I'm still like, R.I.P. Oh, and I'm sad, but like,
to suffering that shot.
my attitude is not, oh my God, no. It is what it is. That's sad. Look,
The victims' families. Tony Gardner's killer is still at large, the motive unknown. His parents now recognize the dangerous world in which their son had chosen to live.
It frightens me because I've got other children out there. Someone out there knows who killed Tony. And I just hope and trust that that someone will don't have to really say who they are. Just pick up the phone and call somebody and just disclose that secret they have carried for nearly 3 years. I wouldn't like nobody to go through what we have gone through and still going through. Nobody, no matter how bad they are, I would never love anybody to go through it. We're suffering.
That's it, man. That's a good look into Moss Side back in the day, man. To see what was going on and see what led to some of the stuff that's going now. Let me know, man, if there's anything else y'all want me to watch, man. TLO, leave a like, comment, subscribe. Remember, I'm trying to do 30 videos a day. 30 videos a week in January, maybe in February as well. So, a lot of these videos is from the Discord. A lot of them is from the playlist that I've been had. But let me know, man. I'm gone.